I'm your host, Deidre Sirianni, and you are listening to the Radically Aligned Show. And today I'm really excited to talk about how to get what is in the way out of the way, what blocks you from being fully activated and in your power. For years in my life, I had this vision of where I saw myself being, but I felt like there was such a big gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. If you're someone who has a big vision of where they see themselves being and you feel like it's so far away because there's this gap and you're not sure how to close it, and you know that you're a powerful being with massive work to do in the world, but you feel like you keep getting in your own way, this episode is for you. So today I'm going to be sharing the main things that get in the way of us being fully activated in our power. So stay until the very end because I have a very special gift for you. So the first thing is, what gets in the way of us being in our power? Why do we self-sabotage? Why do we play small? Why do we settle for less than what we truly want in life? These are questions that I really had to ask myself on my journey of stepping out of playing small, of stepping out of living a dual life, of stepping out of living a life that never really felt like my own, to taking the plunge, starting a new business, and completely transforming my life, which has led to so many different adventures over the years. And it's a continuous inquiry for me of when I notice that I'm shrinking my energy or holding back, to remind myself of this work and reset. And it can happen in as little as a few moments when you know the right questions to ask yourselves, when you have the right guidance and support, and you've programmed yourself to pay attention and you know what your default settings are. So what are the things that get in the way of being who we truly are in the world, who we're meant to be, our full potential? We talked about this in a past episode where we talked about true identity versus our personality. It's a lot of our personality that can get in our way, which is our past, right? Past programming, imprints, traumas, things that have happened to us, who we think we are, who we think we should be, who other people think we are, who other people think we should be. The list goes on, my friends, right? And so these things can get in the way, of course. And it's important to realize, like, is this really who I am? Or is this something that I've been attaching to because of something that's happened in my past? And we'll dive a little bit more into that today as well. So the first thing is, what gets in the way? So I'm going to simplify it for you today and share three main things that are getting in the way right now of you being fully activated in your power and showing up fully in your life. Number one is you're not being honest with yourself somewhere or everywhere. For a long time in my life, I was living out the 70%. Everything was pretty good, right? Everything was at 70%. And I held on to the 70% because there was a belief system that if I release the 70%, what if that's as good as it gets? What if I missed my chance on XYZ? And that's how I lived my life up until my mid-20s. I was doing a lot of things, checking things off the list, but it wasn't quite it. So if you're asking yourself the question, is this it? If you feel like you're playing small, if you know that where you are now isn't where you're meant to be and you're not fully activated in your power, listen up, my friend. All right. So what's getting in the way? Lack of honesty. When we are not being honest with ourselves on a deep level, it is impossible to create a change. I'm going to say that again. When you're not being honest with yourself on a deep level, it is impossible to create a change because you'll continue to go back to the lies that you've been telling yourself, because that usually comes from programming. Again, who you think you are, who you think you should be, who other people think you are, who other people think you should be, and all of that stuff. I actually just got off of a session with a client who was talking about this self-sabotaging behavior in relationships. And they were saying, like, why do I keep getting myself in these toxic relationships that I know from the beginning aren't aligned? And a part of that comes down to not being honest with ourselves. If we're truly tuning in, our body is always giving us messages. But the question is, are we being honest with ourselves? Number one, do you really ask yourself what you really want? And do you really get clear on that? Most of us, and at least I know for myself and many of my clients, when we're doing this work of activating their power, of expanding their energy, of them stepping deeper into their purpose and their path of manifestation, there's usually a level of lack of clarity. And this can come from the space of, I don't know, or I don't know what it's like to dream. And so the first piece is getting honest with yourself and getting really crystal clear on what it is that you want to the T. Because the truth is, the universe can deliver everything that you want to you when you're crystal clear. But when you're not clear, when you're in the space of, I don't know, or you're not being honest with yourself, the universe is going to give you a lot of wish-washy things, wish-washy friends, wish-washy opportunities, wish-washy relationships that, maybe they're the 70%, but they're definitely not quite it. And then fear can take over. So number one, you got to get radically honest with yourself, and especially with where you are now. Like, how are you really feeling now in this moment in time? And as humans, we can have this way of sugarcoating things, right? And I was just in session with a client and I was like, okay, I have a real question for you. And I leaned in and they laughed. And I said, would you eat a pie, like your favorite pie, if you knew there was a tablespoon of shit in there? And they're like, absolutely not. I'm like, then what are you doing with your life right now? Because what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is you saying something that's not working, but then you doing the balancing act. Oh, but these are the good things about it, or it's not that bad. And so one of the foundational pieces of being radically honest with yourself is having radical honesty with yourself, as being, you know what? It's a shit pie. There's shit in the pie. I'm not going to eat the pie anymore. I'm going to not eat the pie. It's a shit pie. So what's not working in your life? What is that shit pie? The thing that you're presenting is, oh, it's pretty good, but really your body tightens. It doesn't feel good. You don't feel good about it. You feel like something's not there. It's not quite it, but you're settling. So don't eat the shit pie in your life. Get honest with yourself, with where you are now and also where you want to go, and take the I don't know out of your life. What if you took the I don't know out of your life, and in every moment you did know because you trusted your intuition enough to take that next best step. And then the next best step presented itself, and the next best step. What I've learned about this work of developing your intuition and really being on path is you're not necessarily going to have all of the steps mapped out for you, but you're always going to know the next step based on your intuition. If something feels contractive, it's probably a no. It's definitely a no. That's how your body says no, right? And if something feels expansive and exciting, that's a yes. Fear may come over later after you've been like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this thing, but it's fear if you had that excitement first. So those are a couple things you can do right away to start getting more honest with yourself and to see what your body is telling you. And so again, step one, radical honesty on where you are now, the things that aren't working, the shit pies in your life, where you've been sugarcoating, where you've been avoiding conflict, and clean that up. The next piece is dropping the I don't know. You always know. If anyone knows, it's you. It's not a coach. It's not a guide. It's not someone in a book. The only person who can teach you something new about yourself and what you do know is someone who is here to guide you to unravel your highest wisdom, which is why I'm a firm believer in being a guide to people rather than being a guru or a teacher who's telling you how you should be. When we have the right tools and processes and support, we always have the right answers. And your body, I guarantee right now, is already giving you signals. It's already giving you the signs. It's already giving you the vision of where you want to go. Now it's your responsibility to get crystal clear on exactly what that looks like and what it feels like. And the feeling is a beautiful piece too. So what else gets in the way of really being fully activated in your power? sweeping things under the rug, right? If things have happened to you in your past, whether it's yesterday, a month ago, a year ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you've been sweeping it under the rug, maybe you have a big trauma or something that happened in your family or an area of your life that you haven't talked about and you've swept it under the rug because it's uncomfortable. Well, the first thing I want to say is that's a normal thing to do when you don't know how to process it, you don't know what to do with it. But the more you sweep under the rug, the more eventually you're going to have to go under the rug and clean what's under the rug out of what's under the rug. Did that make sense? You got to clear what's under the rug out of what's under the rug. Because what happens is it becomes this weight in your life. It becomes this cage that you build for yourself. Every single time you sweep something under the rug and you say it's okay when it's not, or you pretend something didn't happen that did, you begin to program yourself to be in denial, to live a dual life potentially, to lie to yourself and others. And let me tell you, I did this to myself for 25 years. I lived a dual life. I swept everything under the rug because I didn't know how to process it. I didn't have the courage to look at the things that weren't working. And I didn't have the courage to step forward and really use my voice yet. So I want you to know that you got to look under your rug. You got to stop sweeping things under the rug. You got to start listening to your body signals. And if it's an expansion, it's a yes. If it's an excitement, if it's a contraction, it's a no, and you've got to honor those no's. So this is something that you can begin practicing if you need to practice that a little bit more. Absolutely. So when we lie to ourselves, when we lie to others and we sweep things under the rug or we pretend things don't happen, we lose self-trust because we're not trusting ourselves. I'm going to say that again. We lose self-trust because we're not trusting ourselves. We're not listening and we're not stepping forward and taking action. So a perfect example is, over a decade ago, and you may have heard me talk a little bit about this before. I had a trauma. I was raped when I was 19 years old and I swept it under the rug because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to talk about it. I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of denial about it. And I did some empowerment work around it years later. And I thought I was so over it, which, by the way, if you're telling yourself you are so over something, you're probably not. You're at a stage of the healing, but you haven't completed your healing cycle, because the empowerment stage is a little bit of denial in many cases. And so I swept under the rug. I did some empowerment work around it. I went to landmark education and I thought I was over it, right? And then years later, I was introduced to the work that I do now on completing intense experiences, on healing trauma. And I went through a process that actually showed me how much that one thing impacted me for over a decade and how it was still impacting me to that day with my confidence, with my voice, with me speaking up, with everything. And I had to get honest with myself and say, wow, like, I hadn't healed from it. I hadn't completed it. And then the next level of my healing to resolve that big thing that I swept under the rug was actually reporting it, because I realized when a woman was speaking to me who experienced something similar in a recent time, I was like, oh, you've got to report what happened. And she was like, well, this person quit their job and I think that's enough. And I said, well, think about the ripple effect here. If that person, doesn't have anything on their record that this is what happened to you, and, this can potentially impact you for years, then it can happen to other people. And, you may not be the only one. If you don't report it, you potentially definitely probably won't be the only one that this happens to. And so as I spoke those words out into the space, I realized that I hadn't reported what happened to me a decade before. And I had to, again, get radically honest with myself, have courage. That's a piece of one of my main programs. The Turn Your Light On program is radical honesty, courage to look at things that aren't aligned with, how you want to feel in your belief systems in the world and what you want to create. So I had to go and I had to report that. And through reporting it was very uncomfortable, but I knew that in that moment of completing that cycle, I was healing myself because I was putting my foot down and standing up for what I believed in. And so that's the next step of really activating your power. If there are things in your life that you are sweeping under the rug, especially if you're someone who wants to create change in the world, it is always going to hold you back from being fully in your power, because you are not fully allowing what is right and wrong and true and aligned for you to really expand and be real in your life. Because every time you sweep something under a rug, you tell yourself on a very cellular level that you don't matter, that what happened to you doesn't matter, and that your voice doesn't matter. And so what happens energetically is you are shrinking your energy, and people feel that. And it definitely blocks you from being in your power. And again, it's going back to denial, self-worth, lack of self-trust. And these are all things that we need to cultivate and have in our life if we truly want to lead our life and be the leader of our life and lead others, and for other people to trust us. So radical honesty, courage to look at the things that aren't working and then show up. So where I needed to get radically honest with myself was the empowerment stage wasn't the end stage. And that in order for me to heal that, I had to complete it, because I knew that there's a ripple effect. There's always a ripple effect for everything that we do. So if you're in a relationship that's not quite it, it's the 70%, but it's not the 100% it, you are not only contracting yourself on a cellular level, holding yourself back from your self-trust and power and alignment and flow, you're also blocking that person, and it's impacting so many other people. So it's so important, my friends, that we clean things up. We stop eating the shit pies in our life. We stop pretending things are good when we're not, and we start to have the courage to show up and do something about it. All right. So the next piece is acts of self-betrayal. So I was in conversation with a client the other day, and this person was talking about acts of self-betrayal and lack of forgiveness for themselves. Well, how can I feel confident within myself to fully move forward with that big thing in my life if in the past I've done this thing so many times, right? So if you're listening right now and you want to create a new habit, you want to create a change, but you've so many times you haven't listened to yourself. Well, a really good exercise to do is write down what is okay and what is not okay. What is love? What is not love? What is being in my power? What is not being in my power? And create those lists of what is okay in my life, in the space of friendship, what is okay in the relationship to self with how I treat myself. So really getting clear on what is okay and what isn't okay. And these are conversations that aren't had enough about us getting clear on what it is that truly feels good to us and that doesn't. And that's how we can create that space of in between, where we settle, where we let things happen that aren't quite right. And when we give our power away to others and we hold ourselves back from being who we truly are in the world. All right. So how do we activate our power? We have to get radically honest with ourselves. We've talked about that, where you are no longer settling. Settling is a slow poison that kills you over time. This is something my mentor says all of the time. Settling is a slow poison. Don't allow it to poison you, to hold you back from doing what it is that you are here to do in the world and being fully activated. The second piece is, where are you swallowing your voice and holding back your truth? Speak up, practice speaking up, write it down. Where are you holding back? Where are you not speaking up and really sharing what you care about in the world? And for me, mine was going and doing and reporting that trauma years ago, when I realized that was a part of my healing journey, was to actually say something and do something about it. And the next level of me owning my voice around that trauma was doing a TEDx and sharing that story, because I knew it could support other people. So use your voice. Where are you swallowing your voice and swallowing your truth? Use that voice. That's what it's here for. And then the last piece is, where are you saying, I don't know? We talked about this. You always do know. And if you don't know, it's just because you don't know yet. It's going to be shown with the next stage, with the next step that you take, and your intuition, your body is always speaking to you. So I would love to invite you to really activate your power and get super clear on what is in the way and get it out of the way. I have a free gift for each and every one of you. I'm going to add the link in the bio. It's on my website beside the main video, and you're going to click and you're going to download the Radically Aligned Life Assessment. And it's going to take you through different categories of your life. There's over 10 categories where you're going to get radically honest. You're going to practice this with me. You're going to get radically honest with where you are now, where you want to be a year from now, and then you're going to get really clear on exactly what's in the way. Behaviors, thought patterns, belief systems, traumas, all of the things that could get in the way of you being powerful and really showing up, you're going to be able to illuminate them in this worksheet. And you're not only going to get this worksheet and this assessment, you're also going to get a series of videos from me to support you to move through what's in the way and get it out of the way. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode on how to activate your power. The next piece is you need to know what power is. What is power to you? Write it down, get super clear on what is power and what is not power. And through that, you are going to have more energy, more alignment, more flow, and also more clarity on how you've been showing up so that you can show up differently and you can really get out there and start showing up as the most powerful version of you. So go ahead, click the link in the bio, get the downloadable worksheet, get the assessment, and you will start receiving a series of videos from me, and we will start getting what's in the way out of the way so that you can show up purposefully and in your power. Much love. Mwah.